everyone, this is Rachel Younggu from the ESPN Esports Podcast. Is Overwatch the next big esport? How much has BlizzCon changed over the past few years? We break it all down on this week's podcast. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
We have another instance of living proof that you can go home again. Last night, Dwyane Wade back in Miami. We will get to that in a moment. But most important, Golic, today we check the calendar and we remember that this is the day that we salute all of you who have chosen to serve our great country so that the two of us can sit up here and pontificate as needlessly and pointlessly as we do every day.
And, I'll continue to say one day is never enough, that any time you see anybody who's choosing to serve our country, that they should get a hearty thank you from us anytime, anywhere. Bought a drink, bought a meal, bought whatever, and just you can't say enough how much we appreciate the freedoms. I still, some of the things I hold most special to me, and I remember talking to my boys about it before they went through it as well, but it's something you just have to experience yourself, is when I was at Notre Dame and we would play the service academies, Army, Air Force, Navy, and just not only what a game it was, because you're playing against players that are size-wise aren't as big, athletically aren't as athletic, but hearts the size of mountains, and with the way they play. And then comes the realization of, after you get that 60 minutes to play a game against them, and you go and you go to their alma mater while they play it, and they come over while we play our alma mater, you realize then it kind of hits you of just what they're going to do. We're going on, some to play in the NFL and some to go work in the world, and work in a job somewhere, and they are going to, many of them put their lives on the line. And it's a realization as a 18 to 21-year-old, I was very happy to get that realization then, because sometimes it takes age and time to appreciate things. But I was fortunate enough to be able to play against them for 4 years and, learn about them and what they're going to do after those games and after, their college time. So I was very happy to be able to appreciate that. And my boys said the same thing when they finished playing those games and talking to those players over there and just what they were going to do, what the men and women in service are going to do. So I'm very happy I got an early education, and my boys got an early education on that, to truly appreciate just what these men and women are doing for us.
Yeah, I've never obviously had any experience of that sort, but for me, the most rewarding times that we've had on this show have been some of the Veterans Day shows that we've done from the road.
Yes.
They didn't send us anywhere this year. It alternates. Different shows will go on different years. I know we have a lot of different shows at ESPN that will be in a lot of different places over the course of this entire week. I saw Sage Steele is getting set to do something for SportsCenter today, and I just saw it on her Twitter. But either way, we've done shows from Coast Guard cutters.
Right.
We did a show from the Coast Guard Academy, which is here in Connecticut.
Right.
We did a show from the USS New York, which was an unforgettable experience, which was a ship that was made in part with steel that was gathered from the remains of the World Trade Center. I remember getting a tour of that ship with the captain of the ship. He walked us around, remember, for a good hour.
Oh, absolutely. Those are things you don't forget.
Those are experiences that I'll never forget as long as I live. And so, and I'll tell you what else. Maybe even more important than any of those, over the course of time, our show has aired, particularly in our earliest days, on the Armed Forces Radio Network. And we would always get, every now and again, an email from someone saying they were stationed someplace far, far away, perhaps in a dangerous place, perhaps not.
Right.
But even if you're not in a dangerous place, you're far from home and you're lonely and all of that, and people telling us that just hearing us talking about sports would make them feel a little bit better and feel a little bit closer to home. And those have always been the nicest notes that we've ever gotten. So it's a very special day. Mike is right. It should be more than one day a year. But this is a day where we can all make sure we make a point of saying thank you to all of the men and the women who serve and who have served, and the families as well who make enormous sacrifices as well. I know your father, of course, was a Marine. Your father-in-law was a Marine.
Yeah, my father-in-law, Ken Hansen, my dad were both Marines, exactly right. So, Yeah, it's been around my life a lot, and I'm, as I said, I'm very happy to have at an early age learned to appreciate it.
So a happy Veterans Day to one and all from all of us here at Mike and Mike to the sports news, and it starts. As they say, you can't go home again. Well, Dwyane Wade proved you can. Actually, it's an interesting list of players. He is now the 8th player to lead a franchise in scoring all time with over 20,000 points and then go back and play against that franchise in his career. And the others are Karl Malone, Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Dominique Wilkins, Alex English, and Oscar Robertson. You're talking about the greatest of the great. And predictably, he got a long, prolonged standing ovation, enormous cheers every time, not only before when he was introduced, but every time he made a basket, as well he should. Dwyane Wade is, and you'll hear George Sedano say it in a minute, and we talked about it yesterday, I believe he is the greatest player in the history of South Florida sports, all things considered.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well. When you start looking at them, the other name that comes up is usually Dan Marino. You can go to Bob Greasy, obviously, as well, and others. Those certainly aren't the only three, but Wade, I would agree, is at the top of the board. And, when great players leave, I heard, Robin and my son Mike in First and Last, the show before, us talking about, and it leads to this, an obvious topic of great players that are so well known for one organization and then moving on and seeing them in a different uniform like we're seeing with Dwyane Wade. And it's always a different story on why you leave. And certainly in this situation, it just seemed to be, between he and one other person, and Pat Riley, there was no angst, it seems, with teammates or certainly with fans. And one other thing that I would certainly like to throw out there to people that may not know, and some certainly do, but there are so many ancillary people, other people in an organization that a player, when you're there for 13 years, or it doesn't have to, however long you're there, that you get to know, from secretaries, equipment people, assistant equipment managers, locker room boys. I mean, different people associated with the organization that you just get to know and that you become friends with, and you have obviously a respect and a friendship with one another, and you leave them as well. It's true in other businesses, I get it, but that's just another thing. It's not always the players and certainly a lot of the fans, and not always the management, but it's a lot of the other people that are involved in an organization and too. And I know in part of Dwyane Wade talking, he mentioned that as well, and I'm glad he did, because those are some great relationships as well. But this was, you had no doubt he was going to, as you said, going to get the standing O, the video, the whole thing. He's just a class act.
And they won the game, by the way, 98-95. Wade had 13 points, shot 5 of 17 from the floor, but obviously, of course, winning the game is the most important thing, and yet it isn't. In this case, it most certainly was not. Here was Dwyane Wade after the win.
It's just it's weird. You're going against guys. It just seemed like we just playing in the playoffs together, And it's funny because some moments you take back to practice when you guys competing. But, just a good environment, though, man. Fans was great. I appreciate the ovation, the cheers, the things that they were saying. I appreciate it all. But the game itself was weird.
I bet it was. He said, I just remember playing in the playoffs with these guys. You're practice so much with these guys, and now you're playing against them. I'll tell you another thing that's weird, and you don't have to be an all-time great to go through this. I did. I spent a couple of years with the Houston Oilers, but most of my career was with Philadelphia, and then I left there to go to Miami. I was only there 1 year, but in that 1 year, Miami, we traveled back to Philadelphia. And you're so used to, for 6 years, going to Philadelphia, going, into the home locker, the home everything, and then going back and going in the visiting area. I was like, where am I? This is really kind of weird. So imagine 13 years in Miami, and now he goes back, and he's going into that visiting locker room. That's just like a surreal kind of a wow moment.
He slept like 3 hours in his own bed. He's got a house.
Yeah, right.
Still has his house in Miami, of course. It's what everyone's talking about was Dwyane Wade's return last night, brought to you by Lowe's. Get your home in gear for winter with huge savings right now at Lowe's, where you'll find great deals on everything you need to make your home happy all season long. For Wade and Riley, that obviously is the relationship that we're talking about, though, right? It's about Wade and Riley. And how about even just the little subtle power dynamic even going into yesterday? Riley heard Wade talking about, well, we haven't talked. I've talked to everybody but Riley.
Right.
Riley responded with, well, I sent him an email.
Yeah.
Wade responded with, yes, I saw there was an email, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk? Could any if you looked up passive aggressive in the dictionary, there should be a picture of Pat Riley's hair and an unread email. An email that shows not yet read. That's exactly what's going on there between those two guys, and I do think they've both said it. That whenever this ends, whenever Wade's career ends, and whether he has 2, 3, 4, whatever it is years left, he'll come back to Miami, he'll get a statue, they'll hug each other, and they'll be fine. But for right now, there's definitely a little bit of that going on.
Business at times becomes personal. Even as much as you don't want it to, it does. And I'll say this. Just like we talked about Nick Saban, we don't believe that he didn't know that the election was going on. I don't believe Dwyane Wade didn't read the email. Well, just think of it. If he said he did, then all the questions are, what was in the email? What did you say? What did he say to you? Did you email back? That was a great way to not have to deal with it. To say, we heard he sent you an email. Yeah, I didn't read it yet. Oh, you can't ask any questions about the email then because you said you didn't read it. So I find it very hard to believe that he did not read the email.
There is that function where you can save it as unread.
Yeah.
So he has plausible deniability if he wants to say he didn't read it. If someone can see his inbox, dwade@gmail.com. But here's the other side of that also that I was thinking about with Wade going back there and Riley and that relationship and the emails. If you're a fan of that team, is that what you want Riley to do? Like, I go back and forth on this because it's about two separate things. It's about honoring the player, right? He was a great player. He was a beloved. He was like the city's favorite son. So he's like if he plays for your team for 13 years and you're a big fan of the team, he's like a member of the family. Mm-hmm. So you want him taken care of, whatever exactly it is that taken care of means. And again, 2 years and $40 million is not badly taken care of, but he felt disrespected, whatever that is. But the bigger picture is, do you want him taken care of at the expense of building for the future? So I'll use the Lakers as an example. They took care of Kobe. They gave Kobe the ultimate farewell tour, right? Whatever it was he wanted, he got. It became his season. It became a season in which everyone kind of largely acknowledged they were sort of slowing down their own development in order to pay tribute to this all-time great player. He got his great moment. He got his last game and the 60 points and everything else. As a franchise, which is it you want? As a fan, I mean, which is it you want your franchise? What do you want Pat Riley to do?
Well, I think the way it would be if you're and listen, fans know this as well as players. Are you in it? Are you in it? Are you making a push for that championship? And if you are, and maybe you're better without him, and you can have a better chance, maybe you say, "See, it's business, got to go." We have a shot maybe here to get somewhere. But if you're not in it, you say, you know what, let's keep him around for a while. We're not even gonna make the playoffs. So, let's at least have this. Let's at least have Kobe, that we can come see every night and do his thing. And because we knew the Lakers weren't a threat to do anything, but at least you had Kobe, you had the farewell Kobe tour. So I think it could be both ways. But if somehow, some way, and I'm just trying to think of a scenario where it could be, we thought the Lakers were going to be in this thing, but if they could get players because of the salaries, if you didn't pay, though you keep hearing, his salary didn't impede them at all, who knows? You know what I'm saying, though?
Whether the salary impeded them or not,
or the play
is crazy.
Or the play.
But having him there and not developing all these young players that you have as quickly as you otherwise might. Look, let's get to the example that may present itself, right? We saw what happened in Indianapolis. Now, that wound up happening largely because of injury, right? Peyton Manning had a neck. He couldn't even turn his head, and they were 2-14. They were the last team to go winless as long as the Browns are winless now. Mm-hmm. I was looking at that sheet. The Browns lost last night, by the way, and to the Ravens. We'll get to that game coming up for a minute. But my point is, they have Peyton Manning. They're a contender. He gets hurt for the year. They're the worst team in football. And now all of a sudden, you've got a decision to make.
Right.
And Jim Irsay, I believe, as much as I am a critic of Irsay of a lot of things he does, I think he did the right thing. I think the right thing to do there is say, I'm going to take the guy, Andrew Luck, who I believe is going to be my 15-year guy, And if it means saying goodbye to 2 or 3 good years of Peyton, I'll do it. Tough decision. And obviously, Peyton had huge years in Denver.
And a Super Bowl.
And wound up winning a championship at the end. So there's, maybe he was wrong. I don't know. We could have that argument.
Yep. Yeah.
Is this going to happen in New England? I mean, where Bill Belichick is known to be as cold-blooded as anybody.
Yes, he
just
has.
Traded this guy and that guy. He gets rid of everybody a year too early, and a year too late.
Again, he's done it.
Will this come up with Brady, who at 39 is playing as well as he ever has, but he's talking about wanting to play years and years and years. If there is any slippage whatsoever, Bill and Brady obviously are very close. Mm-hmm. Brady and the Crafts are obviously very close.
Right.
And I want to make it clear, we're not talking about anything that appears to be about to happen.
Oh, no, not at all.
But eventually, maybe it does. So if you're a fan there, what do you want to do? I mean, you got to send Brady out the right way, right? Look what the Yankees did with Jeter and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, these are difficult decisions for organizations to make.
It really is, and that will be an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see where the team is in relationship to winning the division every single year when something like that happens.
Well, let me ask you this. Who do you think will recognize first? Listen, at some point, Brady has to start to decline. He just has to, unless he isn't actually a human being.
The player will know but won't admit.
I was going to ask you, who will know it first?
The player will know it.
Before Belichick does?
The player will know it but won't admit it. The player will know it. You heard Schlereth in here at times say, he'd be watching tape in practice saying, who is that guy, and realizing it was him. Saying, wow.
Well, my point is, if he's noticing that, don't you think the coaches notice it too?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what I'm asking you. Who will know first,
I'm telling
Bill or Brady?
I just said the player will know first, but the player won't accept it. The coach may bring it up and want to possibly make a change, but the player will always think they can play through it or get better or still win or still think they're the best option for the team. All those things that I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's the attitude of an athlete. But a player, you're the one out there every day using your body, so you can tell the slightest little thing where, maybe the ball's not getting there like it did. A player knows, but it doesn't mean they accept or admit.
It's interesting because it is a fine line you have to walk. If you're the person in charge of a franchise, if you're Pat Riley, and who wouldn't love to be, if you're Pat Riley, how do you make those decisions? How do you send out your beloved franchise icons whom you want to? I believe Riley wants to do right by Wade.
Sure
in his heart someplace. He's got to have a heart underneath that Armani suit somewhere.
But it can be an expensive want to.
Well, but you also have to balance that with what you perceive to be your fiduciary responsibility and your own competitive sense of trying to build a champion as fast as you can. So how do you look what the Yankees did with Derek Jeter. They gave him a whole farewell tour.
They did.
There were a couple of not so, there were a few bumpy moments along the way with comments that were made and contracts that went around and whatever it was, and everyone kind of put on their best face, and in the end it ended very well.
Right.
Kobe, I think you could probably say about the same thing. And a lot of other cases, not so. Michael Jordan came back and played with the Washington Wizards. Wade isn't even at the end of his career yet. He probably has a few. Wade, in the right circumstance, I still think could be a major contributor to a really, really good team.
I agree. I think a lot has to do with the surroundings around you. Like I said, the money that you would have to spend and how the team is, what you're building around you.
All right, we're Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. In November, Progressive's giving away over 100 vehicles to veterans in need as part of the Keys to Progress program, giving thanks for the freedom they've given us. To learn more, go to progressive.com/keys to progress. Again, Veterans Day today, and we'll continue to say it all morning long. Our endless thanks to all of you who have given what you've given so that we can sit up here and do our best to entertain you every day. We'll do the 5-point stance a little later, but just quickly, Ravens beat the Browns last night, so the Browns remain winless. The FPI is giving all the different variations on their chances of finishing the season winless. The last time that we had a winless team was 2008 with the Lions. And I hope for everybody's sake they win a game somewhere along the way.
I do as well.
More significantly, though, the Ravens on the other side, as underwhelming as they have been for the moment, are in first place in the AFC North.
Exactly right. And they were down again to Cleveland. They were down 20-0 to Cleveland in the first game. They scored the next 25 points and won 25-20. They were down at 1.7-3 in this game and scored the next 25 points again and won at 28-20. to 27. They were losing 7-6 at halftime of this game. And then in the third quarter, they had that's when Flacco went 10-12 with a couple of touchdowns. Hugh Jackson made a quarterback change to Josh McCown. Hogan got in the game as well. They used three quarterbacks, which hadn't been done since the Eagles a few years ago. So, yeah, it's significant, obviously more for Baltimore. But the overall significance for the Cleveland Browns, this is interesting. This is the first time they opened the season with 10 consecutive losses since coming into the league in 1950. Did you see what their overall record is? Their overall record since coming into the league is 461, 461, and 10. They have never, as a franchise, in their total record, been below 500, ever. And that's going to happen.
Who do they play next week?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no game in which they won't be an underdog.
Listen, they're going to have, I'm sure, a losing record the rest of the way, so which means that they've never.
They play Pittsburgh.
They've never. That is amazing. They never have been under 500 in their franchise history. They are now 461, 461, and 10.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's a very long time ago, but at one time they were a model franchise.
Yes, they were.
With all sorts of all-time great players up to and including Jim Brown.
Real quick, and I know we want, and we're going to have time to talk about this as well. Did you see who threw some passes before the game?
Yeah.
RG3 threw 20 passes before the game. He's going to get a scan on his shoulder, and there's a possibility he could play again this year, which brings up the question, do you play him? And we kept talking about the Browns and going forward. Is he still your quarterback next year?
The best of Mike and Mike.
Here's Stugotz from the Dan Le Batard Show, who, of course, has been covering sports in South Florida forever and seems to be upset with me, and we'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. But let's start with the more important stuff. Stugotz, how let's just start with your opinion. How do you think Pat Riley handled the Dwyane Wade departure, all things considered?
Well, good morning, Golic. Yeah, I think he handled it well. I really do. I think what Riley did, guys, I think it's very clear what he did. He offered Wade just enough to show the fan base and to show Dwyane Wade, hey, look, I care about Dwyane Wade. I'd like to have Dwyane Wade back on the Miami Heat. But he offered him just enough to know that Wade would accept that offer because I don't think Riley wanted Wade to come back. So, you know, he just kind of offered enough to show the fan base that he cared, but not enough where Wade was going to take it seriously and stay in Miami, and Wade ended up going to Miami. And I think what you saw at the very end with these two guys is, yeah, if the Heat wanted Wade to be here, he'd be here, and if Wade wanted to be in Miami, then Wade would be in Miami. You know, they have one of the best cap guys in the NBA, and if they really wanted to figure out how to create an extra $2 or $3 million extra dollars this season for Dwyane Wade, they could have done it. They simply could have gotten rid of Josh McRoberts. So I'm cool with what Riley did. He wants to move forward, wants to build. He didn't think this team was going to win a title with Dwyane Wade at this age, even though they got to the Eastern Conference semifinals last year to a Game 7 with the Raptors. And Riley only cares about one thing. He doesn't care about, you know, that final season and take your victory lap. Riley cares about winning titles, and I'm good with that.
But under the scenario you just laid out of Riley just offering enough to show fans that he's making the offer, Wade still is gone. He got offered more, and Miami didn't offer anymore. So is Riley? How much is Riley still like made the villain out there of you still didn't do enough to bring him back?
You know, it's funny because he's getting a lot of criticism, and more nationally than probably locally, guys. Because here's the funny thing. I heard your conversation with Dan yesterday. You asked who's the greatest sports figure in South Florida sports history. And Dan's right. It's Wade, and then it's Marino. I'm not certain Riley's not third on that list. Like, he's built up so much equity with this market where, you know, locally they're upset that Dwyane Wade is gone, but they also believe and trust in Pat Riley, and he's earned that. He's earned it by winning 3 titles. He's earned it by, you know, making great deals for this team. He's earned it by getting the big 3 to come down here, whether you believe he had anything to do with that or not. It doesn't matter. He was the guy in charge of what had happened. So he's earned a lot of equity here with the fan base. I think it's unfair criticism. You know, it starts with LeBron James, and LeBron wanted to leave here. And if you believe Stephen A. Smith, and I do, he will tell you that LeBron James was plotting his exit from Miami back to Cleveland 2 years before the day he left. So there's nothing Riley could have said or done to keep that whole thing together, to keep it intact. LeBron wanted out, wanted to go back to Cleveland, and it didn't matter what Riley said or did. LeBron was going to do that, and then he did what he had to do. He signed Chris Bosh to a max deal. He didn't, no one could foresee the blood clots, and he made Dwyane Wade what I think is a very reasonable offer for a guy who over the last 5 years had 1 year of 70 games plus and was 34 years old. I mean, offered him $40 million, which, when you would factor in the no-state tax here in Florida, he would have netted out more money here than he is in Chicago. So, but again, it starts with LeBron, and there's nothing Riley could have done about that.
Well, so generally speaking, maybe when you look at it that way, it all comes down to hurt feelings. And with that thought in mind, now, Stugotz, why is it you're so upset with me?
You know, Grady, it's funny. I hear you bring Le Batard on yesterday. You know, I'm excited for the interview because Dan has such great perspective. And I think, you know, a conversation with you three, talking about Dwyane Wade and Miami and whatever else. So I'm interested, obviously, to listen to that interview. And, you know, I expect it from Dan, the bashing, the ribbing. But from you, Mike Greenberg, who, you know, I look up to, I've called for advice in the past, I played golf with, you know, I helped you get some Heat tickets for your family. You know, I just expect more for you. It's like, you know, I got into this business wanting to be Mike Greenberg. Now, it hasn't exactly worked out that way because I've evolved into Stugotz, unfortunately. But I got him wanting to be Greeny, and I heard that yesterday, and it's like, I don't know, Greeny, who's your hero in this business? Who's the guy you idolize and look up to in this business?
That would be Stugotz. I have it. If Bob Costas said something like that in an interview with somebody else, ripped Greeny, I think Greeny would be on the DL forever.
Ripped. Here's what I said. Tell me the inaccuracy in what I said. I said, we now welcome Dan Le Batard, who is daily weighed down by Stugotz on the Dan Le Batard Show, which follows us every single day. Would you not describe that as an accurate?
That's a rip.
I believe that accuracy and truth are the ultimate.
Then you're ripping him. You're saying he is like a lead balloon for that show and brings it down. How do you not take that as a rip?
But Stu, do you not agree with that?
Did you notice how quick? Well, Golic, did you notice how quick Golic? Thank you so much, and I love you. And quite frankly, it's Golic who I idolize now. But Golic, did you hear how quickly Le Batard had to twist that around and defend me? Did you hear that? Did you notice that?
You know what? That's what a friend does. He defends, and that's what he did. I was a little aghast. I was a little
See, I took that as one of those, they can't do that to our pledges, only we can do that to our pledges kinds of moments.
Yes.
I mean, Stugotz, I listen to the show every single day, as you know, and I hear, the occasional struggle with the reads. I hear all of the various things. I heard the time that you set up, speaking of Bob Costas, my idol, you spent an entire show setting up how you were going to ask him a question that was going to infuriate him, and then you botched the question. I mean, I'm paying attention to this stuff here, Stu, so I believe that my introduction of you was bordering on kind.
Greedy, listen, if you had a fire-breathing dragon down your neck every single time you did a read like I did with Le Batard, you'd botch a couple of those too, as professional as you are. It's just
I
the
think,
way it is. I mean, the guy's hanging on my every word. And you're right, I've told Dan a million times, the way I'm treated, and the way I act, is reserved for Dan and Dan alone. So I guess it just kind of hurt to hear you, Greedy, who I respect so much, it was just an unnecessary shot. Just bring Le Batard on next time and have the conversation. How about that?
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. He didn't have to say it, and he said it, and it stung a little bit, which I think, and I hate to do this, but maybe, Stugotz, you may have to look in the mirror and say, why did I even look up to Greeny in the first place?
I agree.
Yeah.
My children don't look up to me.
That's exactly right.
I've already done that, Golic. There's been a lot of reflection.
You will hear Stugotz and Dan Le Batard and company today, 10 Eastern, right after us, coast to coast.
By the way, thanks for taking care of my son. You guys have a lot of fun together. It sounds really good on Sundays when you do that show. It's a great show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You see that, Greeny? Is it that difficult? Is it that hard to be nice?
Greeny, say something nice about him right now.
You can, if when my son gets old enough, you can do a show with him too. He's 13 right now. Maybe you could show him the ropes a little bit, as Golic has for all these years.
That's the nice thing you're saying to Stugotz right now?
Well, I don't really have
Grady,
a
I'll tell you this. Yeah. If I started doing a show with your 13-year-old son tomorrow, I can tell you with 100% certainty he would be the smartest person on that show.
No, I agree. Okay, I'll say something nice about Stugotz. You want something nice about Stugotz? Here it is. You're a much better golfer than your handicap would indicate.
That's not even nice. I mean, right there, you're accusing me of fudging my handicap.
Yes, you're a sandbagger, too.
Unreal.
Okay, Stugotz, thank you.
And let's be honest, Greeny, let's be honest. You and I are terrible at radio beats. We're just not good at it. We're not good at radio beats.
When your business is construction and you get a big job that has to be done in record time, you need to get the ball rolling, which means all of a sudden you're looking to buy enough sheetrock and lumber, steel, and other materials quickly. Business cards from American Express Open can give you buying power to help cover the big purchases you need to make when you need to make them. Find out how American Express cards and services can help prepare you for growth at open.com.
It is our distinct pleasure to welcome in, as we do regularly on Fridays, and looking, if I may, extraordinarily stylish this morning, the one and only Domonique Foxworth from The Undefeated and a whole lot more. You're looking very smooth today.
Thank you. I was motivated by you, how swaggy you are on a regular basis.
The love fact, you can stop now, Neek. I mean, you don't have to do this.
No, he needs it because you guys bash the man so often, and you're full of confidence, and you walk around in your sweatshirts, and you don't care.
No.
And I can feel it,
yeah.
And that is sexy, but Greeny is a little less full of confidence.
You're saying he needs the build-up.
Absolutely, and I think I'm here to do that. I'll let my words enter your eardrums, vibrate, and send a message to your brain and imbue you with the confidence of the peacock that you know that you are. In the world of all these turkeys, you're a peacock, Greeny. Believe in yourself.
Is that like something your therapist would say to you to motivate you?
No, my therapist is not nearly that inspirational. Candidly.
You're the man. You got to believe it. It doesn't matter. Right? See, I got up this morning, I put on all these nice, fancy, expensive clothes, and then I capped it off with some nice slides. But I look great.
Flip-flops on.
Yeah.
He does. No, there's a slides. There's a very
slides.
good.
Okay.
Slides, flip-flops, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm confident.
Yeah.
This might become a new fashion trend just because I said so and I believe in it, and I'm that sexy. And you can be this sexy too, Green.
He exudes confidence as well. I guess that he's trying to get out of you. It never happened, but it's a good effort.
Listen, I mean, I've said many times, I don't know what it would be like to feel good about yourself. I'd love to try it sometime. Okay, Domonique is here in our studio. Bunch of different things going on. I do want to start with this. I've enjoyed a lot of our conversations that have been outside of the white lines, if you will, of the football field. And I think there's one big one going on right now, obviously. It was a big topic here yesterday. Mark Schlereth was in our studio talking impassionately about it. And you were one who was, I think, a leader figure in a lot of locker rooms, if only based on your role with the union and other things. So let's make this Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost. We go through a presidential election in this country, which was an extremely divisive election, and the result is one that, I guess, as is most of the time the case, half the people are happy and half the people are not. And in this case, many who are not are extremely unhappy for reasons that we don't need to detail for everyone. Everyone knows what they are. We've seen a lot of players who have been very outspoken in this. Right. And then, there are players in that locker room who feel the opposite way. Mm-hmm. How complicated do you anticipate that to be in some places right now, particularly in the sports that are in season, and I guess maybe in your sport of football, which is your expertise?
I listened yesterday, and I think that the things that were said were beautiful and poignant. However, I don't know that it impacts different teams differently, and I think that one of the things that was said that I was absolutely spot on was that the conversation is going to be had. That void is going to be filled by someone. And if the head coach doesn't do it, someone else may do it, and it may become a problem for your team. But I think overall, these things happen. There are great divisions within the team. Like, obviously, I can't get into specifics, but there are things that happen between players on a team that don't divide a team. So I don't see this as a major division in a team, but I do think it's an opportunity for guys to get more and more involved and to think more critically about what their role should be in society. And I've always been one to say that players have an obligation to do to improve our society, but they don't have any more obligation than the rest of us. So I think that our players should realize that. Everyone out there who's listening, and especially on a day like today, should realize that we have an obligation. Not only do soldiers have an obligation to fight, of which my father was in the Army for 20 years, but we all have an obligation to fight for things, and it may not be by picking up a gun and going to war, but there are things that we believe that we should represent, and it's our obligation to keep those things going.
Yeah, and like we said yesterday, it's going to be talked about, and then the players are going to move on and play their games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens. It'll stick, obviously, with more people out there around the country longer than it will with some athletes who are going to go play their games. And you're right, as far as in the locker room, we know, and I said it before, the two things that really will disrupt the locker room is women and money.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
That is it.
I mean, I've seen those women issues become a problem in the locker room.
That will tear a locker room apart.
And I've seen guys still go out and play and have to work together. So I think that this election while it means a lot more than their issues, it doesn't mean more than
Right,
that did to
that
those
is-
two
that's
players.
exactly right.
And they found a way to get past that, which is, I mean, it goes to a bigger thing where I am annoyed by how we in the media overplay the distraction idea. Like, guys aren't distracted by words that are said here or there or these events. Like, guys it's been a sifting process to get to this point. And no one who's in the NFL is soft. And no one in the NFL is going to be broken down by some distraction.
I agree. I've said that many times here. I think that the whole distraction thing is overplayed. Yeah?
I agree. You have said that for a long time. I've wondered that for a long time, always having been on the outside. I do wonder, however, now you said to me, Mike, that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like late in a season, when a team is kind of, out of it or whatever it is, what you will see is not guys not trying as hard as they can on Sundays, but the question is, are they coming in early Wednesday and watching extra film? All that kind of stuff. So that's what I mean here. A distraction doesn't mean that a player is going to be running around on a field on Sunday saying, oh, my, I'm not picking up his, I'm supposed to be his deep help, but I'm not doing that because he supported it.
The distraction is taking you away from your preparation.
Yeah, that's what I guess that's what I'm talking about.
And my point has always been when the media is in there talking and people talking to the players, that's already a time carved out for that. And I don't see that distraction following into the meeting room when you're watching tape or following into the weight room until, as I said, later on in the season. Then it's up to each individual to continue to do their own work. But, I've long agreed with that, Nick. What you said is I do think now there are some things that can be, but I do think overall that is overblown.
I mean, I think your thought process is right in that if it's not going to have them distracted on the field, but it could take them away from their preparation. But there are so many players are not superheroes, or they don't only they're not robots that are only turned on Sundays. They have lives, and those lives have complications, and those distractions always exist. So I guess my argument is not that they won't be distracted, but this won't be anything new. They have kids, they have parents, they have friends, they have families, some from low-income situations. There are lots of things to deal with as an adult human, and the players are no different, and they've been able to balance that.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage in America's largest and most dependable networks. I just thought of something else I'd like to ask you if I could. Mike and I talked about it earlier this week. It's a complicated one. I know you'll indulge me because it's Jets related, but it really is a bigger picture question. If you have a players, in this case, the Jets had two star defensive players in Sheldon Richardson and Mo Wilkerson who missed meetings, and they're both sort of arguing publicly what it is they did or didn't do. But either way, the sum total of it was they were disciplined by the coach by forcing them to sit for the first quarter of a game against Miami last week. You could argue, watching the way the game played out, that went a long way towards the Jets losing that game based upon the way they got run on in that first quarter. They never do. And it brings up the question, I'll give Amy the credit. Amy Trask was the one who tweeted about it and brought it up, and Mike, you and I talked about it here. Domonique, what are your thoughts on discipline for individual players that winds up being something that costs the entire group when the entire group didn't do anything wrong?
Well, I mean, you're a team. I think that's how it works. When you're on a team, your decisions, and it's something that the players should be aware of, is that they probably already are aware of it, but your decisions impact the people that are relying on you. So it's unfortunate when it happens. It's disappointing, but it also negatively impacts the coach. I think the bigger question for me is I've always believed that you kind of get what you ask for out of players. So when you start setting curfews and having these different type of expectations, it kind of breeds some of this. So I think that the players ultimately need to take responsibility. But I think that there's some things that I've always felt being in football locker rooms and being on football teams that coaches complain about the players, but they also they treat them like children in many cases. And when you do that, sometimes the players respond by trying to get away with things. Whereas I've been on teams where it's been very different, and I've heard about teams where it's been very different. I think the Colts come to mind during Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy's era, where there was a certain expectation. No one was out there watching, sitting in front of the rooms, waiting to see if girls or women were coming in or not, and no one was sitting out there checking curfews. They understood, and I think that's when you get the best out of your team, is when they buy in, not when you have to force them to buy in.
I see what you're saying, but to me that sounds a bit like an excuse for somebody to do something. Right. I mean, you're a professional. Yeah. If you're supposed to be in your room at 11, be in your room at 11. I mean, I get what you're saying, though. Wait a minute, especially as a pro athlete, when you feel a bit invincible. Wait a minute, you're telling me what to do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to test that. I completely agree with that part of it. More along the lines of, hey, you guys kind of police yourselves, but the coach is giving you lines. But I was never on a team that didn't have rules. Now I was afraid to be a 30 seconds late, so I'm not in the area of these guys. But I certainly don't. My thought is just be professional. And I wondered, Neek, where the guys, leaders in the locker room were there. Right. Someone take control of that. You don't give them a
chance. That's my opinion. So I certainly don't wish to absolve them of their responsibility to be there and be on time. But my point is you don't give them a chance to do that when you're babying them, and you don't give the locker room leaders a chance, because that's when I was on the Ravens, that was something that was Coach Harbaugh did something that was very odd to me when I first got there. Is one of the meetings he said, every team I've been on, they talked about how we don't point fingers. And one of the first meetings when I got there, he said, we point fingers. And we all left the meeting like, what? This is like weird. But I mean, it made sense. Like we call each other out. We take responsibility. And that was a situation where while there were still some of this like kind of big brother overlooking type of stuff, that was a situation where we had leaders and veterans and we policed ourselves. And he was a young head coach. So I give him some credit for being confident enough to release the reins. But when you have situations like that, that's when you have the team that comes in late and early and is not trying to be seen by the coaches working out. They're actually working out to work out.
Because they want to be.
Yeah, that's a culture that you breed. And I think that the decisions that coaches make to be like overbearing is breeding another type of culture where it's a division. And it's like when you were a kid and you and your brother or your sister were like trying to get away with something. Mm-hmm. That's a very different culture than when you're an adult and you are co-workers and you're working towards the same goals. I mean, I understand that it's trying to upset the way that people view sports over a long history, but I think that sometimes change is needed, especially when you're not a good team. Why not try?
The one thing I will say, there is a difference of saying, you know what, we're not going to have a curfew and come to a meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You get guys start not coming to meetings, then it's going to create havoc. So I understand what you're saying, but there are definitely lines of what you can be a little more lax on than.
No, I may have used this as an opportunity to share one of my other theories, because in this case they were definitely wrong. But I think that it kind of breeds a culture in that if you're not on them about curfew, if you're not on them about you got to be at this meeting at this time, you make it clear to them that we're all on the same team working to the same goal. They will show up because they care, because it's important to them. You don't want them showing up because they're scared to get suspended. You want them showing up because they give a darn. Can I say?
Well, wouldn't you hope they give a darn anyway? Though I guess that's where I'm conflicting here a little bit. Is we didn't make it to pro ball just so we could make our own rules. Right. We made it to pro ball because we wanted to play ball and we wanted the team to do well and we wanted to play well. So I
agree and I understand, but I do think that there are subconscious things that are happening, and there are when you create a framework, it influences the culture and influences behavior. And when I was on teams where the coach was kind of overbearing, mm-hmm. I was never a guy who was late or anything, but I always pushed back, and it always bothered me because it felt like he didn't trust me, and it felt like he didn't appreciate my intelligence or what I could bring to the team. When they would come and drop a game plan in front of us and say, this is what we do, and we didn't like it, we would go back in the locker room and say, this is garbage. But when they would come in and say, this is what we're thinking, and then we would work to build together, we believed in it more. And whether it turned out to be a better game plan or not, we understood it more. We played harder for it because it felt like we had ownership of it. And that's the same thing I'm saying for entire culture of a team is I think that a coach will find success at some point by not doing this dictatorial type of approach, by thinking of more. And I think a lot of tech companies out west have started to do this. That's very different than the hierarchical structure that we're used to in these old-fashioned GE type of companies. I think that's a more flat org chart, for lack of a better analogy, I think would help some team somewhere. And rather than this kind of terrified, insecure coach, no, be here. This is what we're going to do. Shut up. Be tough. You're too soft. That's garbage when you're talking to grown men who obviously are tough, who obviously aren't soft, who obviously can set goals and work towards them. And I don't know. Sorry, soapbox.
No, I like it.
And it's kind of a new way. See, because I'm a little old. I understand some new school, but I'm a little old school. That every now and then, you know what? I don't mind somebody being challenged. Hey, you know what? Look at your play there. It was soft. You better toughen up. I don't think to me there is something to being challenged a little bit, and not just kind of it's okay. Or
so I think there's a difference. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be challenged. I'm saying the way in which that they're challenging is different, because they will challenge themselves. And like I said, what I thought, even though I don't think Coach Harbaugh went all the way to this level, I think what he did by saying we do point fingers, like we don't point fingers in the media, but we point fingers in the locker room.
Right.
Like I never held myself to a higher standard than when I was looking around the locker room and I knew that they cared. I cared less, frankly, when I thought the only person that was disappointed or the only person that was angry was a coach.
Right.
It's like, shut up. Like, you're getting paid. You don't care about me. You will trade me. You will do whatever. When I did get traded, you'll release me. Like, you aren't my friend. You aren't my brother. You aren't my family. These guys in this locker room are guys who I genuinely care about. And when we hold each other accountable and we take control of this, like, that's something that coaches talk about that they want all the time, is the players to take ownership of the team. So then let them take ownership of the team.
So on that note, coming full circle, how disrespectful then for those guys to be late is it to their teammate?
Yeah, very much so. I can't disagree with that. It's hard for I think we're all kind of trained to take one side or the other.
Right,
I can say that they were wrong and also say that I believe that the structure is flawed.
Structure.
So I think they were definitely wrong. They should take responsibility, but part of the influence for them behaving in that way, I think, is the structure of sports.
Mike and Mike, Domonique Foxworth is here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. One more, and then I know you got a bunch of other stuff you're going to do here today. We have had a lot of conversation over the course of this year about declining television ratings, and there are any number of reasons why that may be. Now, I haven't seen last night's rating yet. It was only on NFL Network. It was not a very appealing game. So, and the reverberations of the election are still clearly being felt. I don't think we can say, okay, we're out of the election time now. Right. But we will be at some point. The cable news networks will stop having these disproportionately huge ratings. And in theory, maybe football ratings will come back if we are to believe that the biggest factor in this was the election. You study this stuff closely, and again, you are the president of the Players Association, so you know this stuff inside and out, probably better than just about anybody. If you had to pinpoint the single biggest reason that you think television ratings are down, out of the many,
okay,
what would be number one?
Well, for 1 second, when you said election, it made me kind of go back to the point that I've been harping on, and I think that this election was also an area where people were kind of saying that they don't want to be controlled by a group. It's ironic that the person that was elected was also fits into that elite group, but that's just a whole nother non sequitur. I think there were other issues, including race and class, that influenced the election, but I thought that was an interesting parallel to make. But as far as football is concerned, I think that the election being over will change the way the people's viewing habits, but I feel like the way that TV one thing that we talked about before the CBA negotiations with Roger and owners in the league was how to get fans to come to the stadium, because the TV experience was too good. It was starting to cannibalize the in-stadium experience. And I think that could also be true. I know during the break you mentioned the red zone. I think that could also be true. So I'm someone who, when I watch football games, even the ones that people think are bad, I enjoy it because I understand the complexity of the chess match. And I like watching, like, oh, they bring an extra safety in the box. How's the offense going to answer? They've run this play 3 times. I wonder what their counter to this is going to be. Like, do they have a play action off of this run action? And trying to guess based on alignments and splits, trying to guess like that. That gets me excited, and I enjoy it, and I know there's a horde of football nerds out there who can enjoy it also, but the casual fan doesn't appreciate that. And I think another thing that is interesting is this is kind of an example of the customer not always being right, because all of us thought fans want more touchdowns and they want more points. So the NFL made more and more rules that are more difficult for the defense. And what's actually happened in many cases is we end up with plays that, for the casual fan who doesn't care about one side or the other, is left unsatisfied. So you throw a 40-yard bomb downfield. In the past, we would either celebrate a great defensive play or celebrate a great catch. We're now in a situation where we don't celebrate anything unless you're rooting for that team. You're just like, I know a flag's coming. Oh, here we go with the refs again. Like, that's terrible. And I am biased as a DB because I think pass interference is a scourge, and I think it's it's awful. And I have never, though I've been called for pass interference in my career, I've never actually committed pass interference. As have no other corners in here. Like I'm always dumbfounded when I see the flag on the ground. But I do think, and on a serious note, I do think that that's part of the problem. Is that makes it less exciting, and I could appreciate a good defensive play. I could appreciate a good catch. I can't appreciate a well-thrown yellow hanky.
There is few things in sports, and football is unfortunately in that era right now, where anytime a quarterback is hit or there's a pass down the field, the first thing that comes to your mind is there going to be a flag? And I mean that can't be good.
And as a cornerback, and I am full of cornerbacks' confidence, and I try to imbue Greeny with that same confidence, but I don't really appreciate those penalties, and I also don't. I can't. I need my cornerbacks to be full of confidence. I love when cornerbacks celebrate and cornerbacks dance. Like, that's part of what I enjoy about it, and the choreographed dances that I had with my teammates back in the day. I love that. And I hate more than anything when the ball goes up and then the corner breaks it up and the cornerback does this weird little like half celebratory spin to find out if there's a flag before he can go before he can go in. Yeah. And like the moment is lost. And I hate that. I know that no one else out there appreciates the cornerback dance as much as me, but it kills it.
The only free dancer out there right now is Marquette King, the punter for the Raiders. He's the only one that can just dance when he wants and no repunctions at all.
He is a national treasure, by the way. When that game was on the other night, I was like, wow. I remember when I first saw him punt a ball. I think there were some other things at play, but I was like, hey, that guy looks like a pretty good athlete. Yeah. And I'm sure that there were some other factors that led me to that conclusion. But I saw they ran a fake with him, and I was like, hey, he's a good athlete. Yeah, and then he's dancing like he's
dancing was phenomenal.
But the NFL is one that wants to kind of whitewash, and not in a racial sense, but kind of whitewash their product in a way that they can package it and sell it. And those type of individuals, the type of individuals that are celebrated in other sports, are not celebrated in football.
The best of Mike and Mike.
It's been all the conversation about the Raiders and Cowboys offensive lines, and how I feel like we went through a little period there, particularly with Peyton Manning in Denver, where the conversation was all about quarterbacks getting rid of the ball so quickly that it almost didn't make any difference. There wasn't any reason to invest a lot in your offensive line because these quarterbacks were getting rid of the ball before defenses could even get to them anyway. And now all of a sudden, I feel like here we are a blink of an eye later, and it's a 180-degree different story. The Cowboys and Raiders are right near the top of the NFL because they have invested so much in these good offensive lines.
You're absolutely right. It was kind of interesting as I was watching the game last Sunday night, the Denver-Oakland game, and they show those end zone, the sky cam shot, and if you're behind that Raiders offensive line, you don't see the defensive linemen. Like if Mike Golic was behind some of these offensive linemen, you wouldn't see Mike. They are that big, and the Raiders have done a great job with their salary cap. They spent more money on offensive linemen than any team, and they now average 327 pounds up front. It's the heaviest offensive line in the NFL, and watching him handle Ware and Miller, the NFL has become a finesse game. If you watch that Raiders offensive line, there's no finesse. I mean, they are smashing people. They're taking them and throwing them around. It's a little bit of the throwback football, and yes, they're averaging almost 5 yards per carry. But if you look at it up close and you watch Derek Carr, he's only been sacked 3 times on sacks given up by that offensive line. A back may miss a block, some other tight end may miss a block, but the offensive line has given up only 3 sacks. So yes, they're running the ball well, they're protecting the quarterback, but they are really fun to watch, man. It's a little old school football now out in Oakland.
It's fantastic to watch, and it goes to show as well that you can do it both ways, because I think the two best lines are the Cowboys and the Raiders. And the Cowboys, their top guys like Smith and Frederick and Martin all drafted in the first round, and guys like for the Raiders, Hudson, Osemele, and Penn all free agents. So you can find different ways to do it and still build a strong offensive line. Another guy that's kind of come back to a little bit of maybe will we see what he was before his injury is Jimmy Graham. But I don't even want to go to the injury. When he first got there, Sal, to Seattle, we were all expecting big things. Wow, they don't have a lot of big-time wide receivers, but, man, they add this big-time tight end. And he seemed lost in that offense, and then the knee injury came, so that even set him back further. But, boy, what a game he had last week. Are they finding different ways to get him into the lineup now? What's been the biggest difference there?
Oh, absolutely, Mike. And quite honestly, when Jimmy Graham first went to Seattle, I did not expect him to put up the numbers that he put up in New Orleans. It was a different offensive scheme. Sean Payton, one of the great designers of offense, future Hall of Famer Drew Brees at quarterback. Jimmy Graham was going to get more opportunities. Seattle, a much more balanced team. They want to run the football first, but right now they can't run the football. Their offensive line is just adequate, so they're going to need Jimmy Graham. And it's kind of funny. As I've watched him on tape, he has gotten better every single week. Snaps he's played, you watch his movement much better. And I thought Monday night really showed Jimmy Graham now back to 100%. And a lot of times that's predicated to me on the routes that he runs. Remember, he came off a ruptured patella tendon. Some guys never even come back from that. So every week he got better, and now I'm seeing the vertical part of his game, those seam routes, the deeper routes. He gets 8 catches for 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. A couple of those touchdowns were phenomenal one-handed catches deep down the field. So now I kind of spin this forward to the great matchup Sunday against the Patriots. And, boy, Gronk and Jimmy Graham, that's one tight ends want to watch around the country. That'll be just a great game if you love the tight end position. But the one thing about the Patriots, they will play that split safety, and so you will see Jimmy Graham running down the hole and running deep. And he certainly is a guy right now that Russell Wilson is looking for in the red zone.
No question about it. And then obviously on the other side of the ball, the Patriots have Tom Brady, who is playing at a level that even he perhaps has never played at before. What are you seeing on the film?
Mike, I sometimes feel bad because I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback ever to play the game. And we sometimes take him for granted. We really do because he's been around so long and been so good for so long. But the way he's playing right now, I'm just going to say the word ridiculous. He's playing that good since he came back. They're averaging 34 points a game since Brady has been back. Overall, he's a number one quarterback. Against the blitz, he's a number one quarterback. In the red zone, he's the number one quarterback. On third down, he's ranked the number one quarterback. Using play action, he's ranked the number one quarterback. And the list goes on and on and on. Then I look at the tape and I watch Tom. He's 39 years old. He's moving like he's 29. He's got 10 rushes for 44 yards this year. The pocket mobility is there. The arm strength is there. The anticipation is there. The chameleon-style offense they run changes every week. Every series is still there. This is a phenomenon that I couldn't be more excited about.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We hear from Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. Trevor Daley of the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins stops by. So does Charlie Coyle of the Minnesota Wild.
We've got Field Yates ready to go here. We will do a recess with him in just a couple of minutes. I'm just trying to read because a new reader just came across from Pat Riley on his email that he sent to Dwyane Wade. So these relationship dynamics to me are fascinating. And I was the one, Mike, I feel like you disagreed with me. First off, good morning, Field. Well,
good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
It's a nice shirt that you have there. I like it.
Thank you. Too casual for you?
No, it's not.
You got on me last time.
I know you weren't looking at me when you said that. Nothing too
Never. Very casual.
Never. Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
He doesn't like it.
He's biting his tongue.
He does not like it.
If I had a cardigan on, then we'd be in business.
See, no, let's not do that because I want to get into this topic here because I think it is an interesting one. That what is it about sports that we like? I guess there are a lot of things about sports that we like. Some of us just like to watch people competing against each other. Some of us, like Domonique was saying earlier, we really enjoy the chess match nature of certain sporting events. To me, I appreciate more than anything else, I think, the drama. And much of the drama comes in seeing the passion. I love seeing how much people want to win and then trying. And then there's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat and all of the interpersonal stuff. Sure. Which is why, Mike, I said that the pregame last week of Kevin Durant versus Russell Westbrook fascinated me. I was dying to see the dynamic between those two guys, and I feel like you disagreed.
I was interested in seeing it, but it didn't fascinate me. I wasn't hanging on that. at all, no.
Well, so I find this fascinating. Heat President Pat Riley says he emailed Dwyane Wade after the former Miami star said Wednesday he hadn't spoken to Riley since the end of last season. Riley said before the Heat hosted the Bulls that he had reached out. Wade confirmed he had received the email, but said he hadn't read it yet. He said his focus was on the game. So let's just contemplate all the different things at play here, right? Wade, greatest player not only in the history of the Heat, but the greatest player in the history of South Florida.
Right.
Riley, the mastermind, the architect of all the great stuff that he was able to do down there and more. Somehow he leaves Miami and talks to everybody. He talked about talking to clubhouse people and all that. Never spoke to Riley.
Right.
Says so publicly upon his coming back. Riley's initial reaction is to send him an email.
Yeah.
I don't know, does he not have his phone number? Whatever. He sends him an email. Wade's reaction is to not read the email before the game. This, to me, is fascinating interpersonal dynamic.
Yeah, to me, it's not. But I don't believe he didn't read the email either. I think that was the best answer to give, because what did he say is, oh, yeah, he sent me an email, I read the email. Then the barrage of questions. What did he say? What did he say in the email? How did he say it?
But you could easily say, you know what, that's just between us.
Why even go that far? It was just, there's a little bit of a power thing to saying I didn't read it, but I don't believe it. And end of questions. You can't question him anymore if he didn't read it. I don't believe for a second.
So you believe he didn't read? You're saying you don't believe he didn't read it?
I think he
double
read
negative.
them. Yes, I absolutely think he read the email.
And then, do you think he went to the length of marking it as unread so that if anyone would ever see his inbox, he would have plausible deniability?
I don't know, and I don't care. What I will say is, it's amazing when some of this stuff ends like this, that somebody can't. These are all grown men here. I mean, that somebody can't pick up the phone and actually call somebody. I'm always amazed at this. So they haven't spoken since. They're not going to speak. Well, I heard he hasn't spoken to him, so I sent him an email. I mean, it blows my mind. That stuff really does.
Do we really buy the idea that it was an email? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, shortly after Dwyane Wade signed with the Chicago Bulls, I believe Pat Riley sent a lengthy text to Dan Le Batard. So I know he's a texter. I know he's proficient in texting. I remember it being very colorful, a lot of exclamation points, capitalized words. Like, I just don't understand how you land on email when you're trying to reach out into, as you just referenced him being, Greeny, the greatest player in franchise history. Is an email really the direct mode of communication that you turn to? I guess I get a laugh out of this more than anything else.
Riley is, to me, he is one of the most interesting people in sports. I've said many times, I'm in the interesting business. I need interesting people doing interesting things. I just find that fascinating. And Mike, I don't want this to come out as challenging, but I would ask you, when you talk about this, you've told me many times when you left Philly, it was personal for you.
It was.
Right? You let it get personal. So to that extent, does that not inform the way you view this? Like, did you pick up the phone and call someone you were mad at, or did they pick up a phone and call you?
No, I did not. You're absolutely right.
You know what I mean? It's sitting here, I get it. We're adults and we're different, but you're playing. This is your life. You're right in the middle of it, and you're mad, and you don't pick up the phone.
I also wasn't with wasn't there as long, wasn't a star player there as long. Didn't
matter to you.
Yeah, but didn't have all the interactions with the GM there that obviously Dwyane Wade did with Pat Riley. They were more than just, that work. I had a working relationship with Mike. There was no personal touch at all there, and with Dwyane Wade there was with Pat Riley. So I do think that's a little bit different.
Did you ever express to them your disappointment in what happened?
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right then and there when basically.
In the room.
Yeah, in the room. Oh, yes. I expressed it. I didn't like how they went about what they did, and that I'll see you on the field.
Golic's an in-the-room kind of guy.
I am an in-the-room kind of guy.
Yeah, you're Mike. Field, you're absolutely right, because Paul Cart just sent me the Dwyane Wade text to Dan Le Batard.
I mean, it's like, that's something I think I got like from my sister when we were 14 and 16 years old, that kind of expression and emoticon and all that. So very impressive.
How long ago was that, just out of curiosity?
Last week.
When you were 14 and 16 years old. Okay, fair enough. Sorry. All right, let's talk about a couple other things, because what's the right way to do this? That's how we opened the show this morning, Field, and with your expertise in the area. You've got an aging superstar. Mm-hmm. You have to balance treating him the right way, however it is that one defines that, with looking out for the best future interest of the organization. Pat Riley's only job, really, is to try and figure out how to way to win the next championship. All the ones that happened already are done.
Yep.
Wade is everything about him is about all those championships they already won, and it's awesome. So how do you balance that if you're the person sitting in Riley's extremely expensive seat?
I think he made the right choice. I mean, he's been the one thing I always say about sports executives that they must be able to do is not to be emotional. And we think about some of the best executives across all sports and what they're able to do in difficult situations, and that is detach themselves from the player's history. And I'm not saying you shouldn't appreciate the player's history. I'm not saying those players are not an integral part of the franchise's history. But think about some of the best in sports, whether it's, what about Bill Belichick? Is the Patriots sort of de facto GM? If you are no longer providing the value on the field commensurate with the pay that you are desiring or that you are currently demanding, you're no longer a New England Patriot. Ozzie Newsome, the Ravens GM. Remember after the Super Bowl, they traded away Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
An unpopular move at the time, but that was what he believed was in the best interest of the franchise. And Pat Riley has been shrewd. He has made difficult decisions time and again. And although right now this Heat season is going to be difficult to stomach for a lot of fans in South Florida, this is probably a team that in the next year or two, as that NBA salary cap, as you know, it ballooned last year, and the crop of free agents is going to become compelling in the next couple of years. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden Miami is primed to make a major run at one of those significant free agents that everybody else in the league is clamoring for.
Here's the other thing. This isn't a situation of cutting someone, trading someone away. As Stugotz brought up earlier, he was offered 2 for $40.
Yep.
I mean, he was offered a nice amount, and he ended up taking, 2 for $48. And you can sit there and say with the no tax in Florida that he's going to make just as much. But we know how it can be. It can be the number. Did Dwyane Wade want the 2 for $48 to be exceeded and to feel like I need to be respected, so they need to make a higher offer than that? But he did offer him 2 for $40, so maybe there's a bit of a two-way street there. You know, that people would say, you know what, hey, listen, Dwyane, I'm still going to offer you 2 for $40, but you also have to understand this team's not doing anything. We don't have LeBron anymore. Chris Bosh isn't coming back. The big three we know is over. So we're kind of in a rebuilding. 2 for $40 is a nice amount here. We appreciate what you've done. Come back here if you want to finish your career here. It's a nice amount, but we're going to start building all over again. So and Stugotz did bring that up, and that's a fair point. It wasn't 2 for 10. Or 2 for 15. It was 2 for 40. It was a good offer.
Sort of right down that line of not being insulting to Dwyane Wade, but not being enough for him to feel like this is a no-brainer. I'm staying in the only place I've ever called my professional basketball home. All other suitors, thanks, but no thanks. I'm sticking with Miami.
See, I'm not close enough to the situation to say this definitively, but my sense of it is that Riley made him an offer he knew he wouldn't take. I think that's what happened.
Yep.
That he made him an offer that the same way that Dwyane Wade could mark that email as unread and thus have plausible deniability, I think Pat Riley has plausible deniability.
I wish I had something like that.
Me too.
Give me that offer and act like I won't take it.
Offer me 2 for $40 and expect me not to take it. Exactly. See how that goes. All right, time for recess. My school's in. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. In November, Progressive is giving thanks for our military service men and women by donating over 100 vehicles to veterans in need through the Keys to Progress program. To learn more, go to progressive.com/Keys to Progress. All right, recess. We'll go through a bunch of the games on the schedule for this NFL weekend, and we have little clever questions designed for Mr. Golic and Mr. Yates here for each of them. All right. Let's start with this. We've got the Battle of the Birds, Falcons at Eagles. Last year, the Falcons started 5-0. They wound up missing the playoffs. This year, the Eagles started 3-0, but they have since dropped 4 of their last 5. So, Golic, should fans of the Philadelphia Eagles relax or panic?
Well, if it's about this year and making the playoffs, it's panic. That's what it would be. I think they can relax in the fact that they have their quarterback, and going forward, I think they'll build off of him for the future. But as far as this year is concerned, He's fallen off a little bit, but what's around him, losing Lane Johnson, they don't have the rushing attack, and the defense is not playing as good as it did early on as well. So I think from the whole around that and making the playoffs this year, that's a panic.
I know for a fact that he's a master of panic.
Field.
Relax. If I told you as an Eagles fan on September 1st, before the season began, that you could be at the halfway point and be 4-4 and have no question about the fact that Carson Wentz was your quarterback of the future because you spent significant draft capital to pay up to move to that number 2 slot to draft him. So if I gave you 4-4 and Carson Wentz looking like the real deal, I bet even in a town and city that has as much passion and as many expectations as Philadelphia does, that you would take that scenario. Here we are. Carson Wentz looks like the real deal. His recent struggles are much more of a byproduct of those around him than some sort of rookie wall that he has hit.
See,
I think relax.
If we're talking the long run, as I said, I agree. But if we're talking this year in playoffs, it would be Pat.
RELAX. Relax.
The problem is that at 3-0 and a blowout win over the Steelers, expectations may have gotten completely out of whack. All right, next game is Houston and Jacksonville. Which statement is more true? The Broncos' best offseason move was not signing Brock Osweiler, or the Texans' best offseason move was signing Brock Osweiler. Which is more true?
I'm going to go with a process of elimination here, and I'm going to say that the Broncos' best offseason move was not signing Brock Osweiler by a mile. $36 million in guaranteed money for Brock Osweiler, $72 million in terms of total value. I think the Broncos' best offseason move was probably getting Von Miller signed long-term, but between these two options, clearly not signing Brock.
It's not even close. Between these two, it's not even close.
And it is?
And not signing Brock Osweiler back in Denver.
So you don't believe the Broncos would be better suited right now with him than what they have?
Not I'm talking about that money.
Yep.
No, absolutely not. Not investing that money. I wasn't a firm believer in Osweiler to boot from the beginning, let alone then put that kind of money into him. So, no, this was an easy answer for me.
Okay, next. Golic, the Rams at the Jets. True or false? Both teams are starting the quarterback that gives them the best chance to win this game on Sunday.
Oh, I still think that's true, yeah. I mean, with Goff, we absolutely don't know what's going on behind the scenes there at all. Case Keenum still, even though he's the second leading intercepting thrower in the league right now, only behind, saying it that way.
It's the reverse. It's whatever it is. Whatever leading is the opposite of. Him and Ryan Fitzpatrick, the two quarterbacks in this game, are the two worst quarterbacks in the sport.
That's why I started with Case saying second, getting to Fitzpatrick, who was the worst. But still, I think from the pure standpoint of giving a team the best chance to win, he still does over a Bryce Petty first start.
All right.
I'm going to go with...
Hold on a second. I got all these sound effects here. I don't like that. I don't like that answer.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with false. And listen, I understand there's
I'm just standing on the line of scrimmage.
Sorry.
Why'd you have to play that?
Because your answer offended my sensibility. Go ahead.
Okay. There's the unknown of Jared Goff and frankly Bryce Petty as well. We don't know what either one of these players will become in the NFL for certain. But you can't tell me that a player who was drafted number 1 overall, and not as if the Rams shocked the world by taking him number 1 overall. A lot of teams would have taken him with that first pick if they owned it and need a quarterback. You can't tell me that he's significantly worse than what we've seen recently from Case Keenum. And I get the Rams' offense is as difficult to watch as there is in the NFL, perhaps outside of San Francisco. Case Keenum has had some steady games so far this year. But come on, make a change. Do it.
Wasn't the question. The question was this game.
I know. I used a different argument
to
prove my point.
Completely a different argument.
I just wanted to see Greeny move that soundboard.
I'm just standing on the line of scrimmage.
He didn't answer your question.
I don't care. Okay. You didn't answer it the way I wanted to. Next, Kansas City at Carolina. The Chiefs have won 16 of their last 18 regular season games. They have a plus 29 turnover margin in that span. Field Yates, are they the second best team in the AFC behind the Patriots?
Yes, because they're about to get very, very scary on defense with the healthy return of Justin Houston, who just 2 years ago had 22 sacks in a single season, one of the best pass rushers in football when fully healthy. You combine that with Dee Ford, their first-round pick in 2014, who had 5.5 sacks in his first 2 seasons. He has 9 already this year. He's only behind Lorenzo Alexander of the Bills and Von Miller of the Broncos. This Chiefs pass rush is very good. They've got a confident corner in Marcus Peters. They're incredibly well coached, and on offense, they're going to be able to run the football now that Spencer Ware is back.
Completely agree. For all the reasons that you said, with Ware coming back, with Houston coming back, and even Alex Smith, missing a game and having the issue, Nick Foles has come in, and I think Nick Foles, when you talk about that backup quarterback, fits the mold of that. He's come in, he's got 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 65% completion percentage. So, yes, I think overall, because I do like Oakland, that defense certainly is shaky compared to the offense. I like Kansas City more overall.
You're both wrong.
Oh, God.
You dig. Right now, the Raiders are the second best team.
Ooh. You're asking us the questions. You're not supposed to be giving your
but
opinion.
I am ultimately the arbiter of who's right and who's wrong. And in this case, even though you gave the same answer, Field was right and you were wrong. All right, finally, Minnesota at Washington. Washington, meaning the Skins, and the University of Washington both hold the final playoff spot in their respective sports. So, Golic, which team is more likely to make the playoffs?
The college Washington, more like, and they listen, of the undefeateds, they have the toughest road. Now with USC making the run they're making with 5 wins in a row and up ranked 20th, and Washington State, if they win the rest of theirs before these two face each other at the end of the season at 23rd.
And they're the one the committee is itching to get out if they can.
They are. I like Washington. I think they are being undersold. I love the O-line. Love the defensive line. They got playmakers. I love the quarterback as well. So, absolutely, I think they are going to make the Final Four.
Field.
Agreed. University of Washington. I mean, Washington in the NFL plays in the most competitive division in the league right now. All teams are at or above 500. And it seems like University of Washington is basically on autopilot to the Final Four. It's got to take care of business. Hold serve. Obviously, this weekend, a big game against USC.
It's a big one.
Very big game. USC's played much better of late. But it feels like University of Washington, and maybe it's because they play late time, and a lot of the country doesn't see them in prime time. This team is, I don't know about underrated. They're in the top 4, but they're very, very good.
I trust Washington's quarterback more than Washington's quarterback.
So you're saying you trust Browning more than Cousins.
Yeah.
All right.
You like how I did that?
I did.
Don't press in.
Once again, you've given the same answer, and yet somehow Field is right and Golic is wrong.
I love this show.
Recess is done for the day. Thank you so much, Field Yates. Always a pleasure to have you.
You guys are kind of alike, and I like Field, and I hate you.
Well, that goes to show it's exactly the same principle by which you can give the same answer, and he can be right and you can be wrong. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And here we go with the most important thing of the day, and that is this morning's winning word. We're going to give you the word. Golic is going to give you 2 ways to enter the word. Right now, you should enter both of those ways to double your chance of winning a magnificent trip with us to the College Football National Championship game with thanks to AutoZone, which is the sponsor of our contest. Again, we pick a winner every day, you and a guest. Top-of-the-line accommodations, all expenses paid, dinner with us the night before, tailgate, come to the shows, hang out with everybody, and we'll sit together and watch the College Football National Championship in Tampa, all for knowing that today's word is winless.
Winless.
The Browns haven't won a game, and so the word is winless, WINLESS. Golic, the 2 ways to enter.
And the only 2 ways, this is the most important part, gang. If you enter any other way but these 2 ways, you will not be officially entered and joining us in Tampa Bay. So we take the word winless and text it to 777-000, and you can enter online at mikesroadtothecfp.com. So the 2 ways to enter with the word, text it to 777-000, or enter it online to mikesroadtothecfp.com, and maybe will UW be there? Will they be one of the teams there?
We will find out. My prediction is no, but we will wait and we will see.
No?
I think that they are the one team that cannot afford, of all the big teams right now, to lose a game.
But you know what? A lot of people are expecting right now that they would be number 4 and play Alabama first, but that won't happen if Ohio State beats Michigan. And then Ohio State would have a loss. I think Washington would move up and be maybe 3, and Ohio State would possibly be 4, and then Washington wouldn't have to face Alabama in that first game.
Well, Ohio State right now is behind Washington, so it would, if they beat Michigan, however, it would be interesting to see if they put them ahead of them.
Beating a top team. I'm with you.
Because they put Texas A&M ahead of them where they lost previously.
Be interesting.
There are a lot of little machinations yet to work themselves out, and we'll see how they go.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Completely apolitical observation. But Mike and I have been invited guests to the White House, and we were there both for a function during the day and a function in the evening.
Rub it in, why don't you?
What's that?
You're so fancy.
It just was what it was. The point I'm making is, for those watching with us on ESPN2, Cassidy just showed some video of President Obama yesterday welcoming the Cavaliers. It was fun. It was light. It was funny. They went out on the basketball court. They did a mannequin challenge, all this kind of stuff. In the same day, he met with President-elect Trump. They sat together for 90 minutes, I believe, and they talked about whatever it is that you talk about when you begin this transition. And then they had their first ever photo op together and they're shaking hands. I mean, just imagine doing both of those things. And the overwhelming nature of that job it does somewhat stun me. I would be exhausted, or at least feel like I had done a full day's work doing either of those things. To do both of those, which could not be more opposite of each other, within the span of like 2 hours of each other, is remarkable.
I was amazed in going through an election year and then watching all the news shows that I learned so many things. I didn't realize like that the president has 4,000 appointed jobs that he has to give. It's just amazing. But to bring it to the sports thing, Jalen Rose is the one that brought this up. Do you think now there will be players in sports that do not go to the White House, and would you be one of them if it were a president that you didn't vote for or didn't agree with, and your team won the championship? Would it dissuade you from going to the White House?
I absolutely think. I mean, players didn't go for President Obama.
Oh, we've got plenty. Yeah. We've got a list of players who haven't gone.
Yeah, I think that it'll definitely happen.
Would you?
I would go.
I would absolutely
go.
Positively go.
Yeah, I certainly. I've been challenging myself, so I move in mostly liberal East Coast, predominantly black circles. So it hasn't been a great couple of days, and I've been challenging myself to not be pessimistic. So in that spirit, I do think that these things will be funnier. And President Obama was a very funny and engaging president, but I think President Trump, and that's pretty upsetting if that's the most positive thing I can think of, but I do think that having these interactions will be more interesting with a new President Trump.
I'll even say, forgetting the candidate, I've always been, if I'm getting an invite to the White House, I'm going. I said that when we went the last time, whether it's someone I voted for or not. I respect the White House, and I respect the person in that White House. It doesn't, whether I agree with what they're doing or not, I would go. I absolutely would. Especially if I had never been to the White House before, I'm absolutely going to, because you do get to go in the White House, tour the White House, see a lot of different things in the White House. I would, without question, I don't
know that I could make a blanket statement. I think given the situation now, I would go, but I would like to reserve some space for if there was something done or said, which I think that President-elect Trump has said plenty of things that would give me pause. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going back a little bit, but I think going into it, if there was some decision that was made, because I think that more important than me meeting the president would possibly be in that situation making a social stand. I could understand during Vietnam, maybe some players would want to make that stance.
Right.
Me shaking hands with the president is not as powerful as potentially me saying that we need to get out of Vietnam or some other issue of the day that might be powerful or poignant.
So with that thought in mind, and I want to reserve some time when we're with you here in this hour to talk a little X's and O's. Okay. Because I feel like we always talk about all sorts of other things with you, and that's because you're very good on that stuff. But the truth is, anyone who follows your work on The Undefeated, you do a ton of X's and O's stuff as well. But having just said that, I just came across these quotes, and I think this is really interesting and timely. And Kimberly Martin, who covers the New York Jets for Newsday, is the one who posted them. But they're quotes from Jets receiver Brandon Marshall, who's one of the more outspoken, obviously, NFL players. He has a huge platform. He does a weekly national television show and all of that. And he's a thoughtful person. And here's one of the things. I'm just going to read you these quotes. He said, "The challenge with athletes is thinking that they have to speak on everything. I think they're feeling the pressure from society. There's been a call to action for athletes to stand up and use the platform, but that doesn't mean you need to talk about minimum wage when you know nothing about that. You don't need to talk about policy when you know nothing about policy. If politics isn't your thing, that's okay, but people feel ashamed. They feel like they're going to be judged. But if that's not your thing, that's okay. If race isn't your thing, that's okay. If cancer is not your thing, that's okay. It's okay not to have an opinion." I covered Michael Jordan at the apex of his fame and popularity, and if there was one thing for which he was criticized at a time when he was probably the most beloved person in the world, if there was one thing for which he was commonly criticized, it was a reluctance to speak out on basically any issue, social issue, political issue, whatever the case may be. And generally it was perceived to be, and I think accurately so, it was for fear of alienating all those who would disagree. Yeah. Because he was an enormously successful business person at the same time and was selling shoes and all the rest of that. The pendulum has really swung to the other direction now, where athletes are so famous and have such a platform, and we're seeing so many of them using that platform. So do you think, Mike, I'll start with you, that a lot of athletes feel that pressure now as though, hey, if I don't say something, I'm going to be judged as though I don't care, or do you hear what Brandon Marshall is saying?
I hear what he's saying, and I think that I think a lot of it because of social media and how quickly you can get things out there, both positive and negatively, that there is pressure. But I 1,000% agree with him. I would never. How uncomfortable would you go feel and act like you're involved in something but aren't educated on it? I mean, you're going to make yourself just look foolish, especially if it is a real social issue where you feel like, oh, I got to say something about this. Well, no, you don't. Yeah. No, you don't. And you don't have to be passionately or act passionately involved in something if you're not. If you are, if you feel the need to make a statement and you're educated on it, more power to you, because professional athletes, entertainers, you do have a pulpit if you want to use it. So I would say if you're going to use that pulpit, I agree 100% with that. Be educated in what you're using it for.
So one of the last times I was on the show, Golic, you called me, I forgot what it was. Maybe you just said that generally I am kind of take the other side of issues.
Contrarian?
Yeah, that was the word, contrarian. Mm-hmm. I'm actually a smart guy, despite the fact that I lost that word for a second. But you called me contrarian. Right. And I took that as a compliment because I think it's a good thing. So in this area, I agree with what Brandon said. He's actually one of the few guys, him and like Richard Sherman, and there's a couple other guys, one of the few guys that I still keep in contact with in the league, and I consider an actual friend off the field. So I love him, and I think he's been through some tough times. I think he's a smart guy. I agree with him wholeheartedly, but I would like to push back a little bit and say that those athletes speaking out, whether they know what they're talking about or not, it creates a conversation, and it forces people who might try to avoid those conversations to be confronted with them. So when athletes say things that are ill-informed and possibly divisive, it's not because they certainly aren't the only ones saying it. Mm-hmm. So I think when they say it and they are called to task and those comments are evaluated on sports shows where people tend not to look for political and social stances, that helps evolve the conversation. Having said that, I agree that it's not their responsibility any more than it's anyone else's responsibility. So when we have all these conversations about do athletes have an obligation, I personally believe that athletes, celebrities, talk show hosts have no more obligation to make the society what it should be than baristas or cab drivers or anyone else. We all have a responsibility to carry the torch of what this country says that it stands for.
But you know what people say, that we can reach more people, so we should use that for the positive. But again, I go to Brandon and I say, if you're not sure what you're talking about and you're just doing it to do it.
I don't think that's true though. Like I understand it may be easier, but I think when you believe in something and you are willing to sacrifice for it, then you can reach whomever you want. And this might be an extreme example, but I'm always brought to mind Mohammed Bouazizi, who started like the Arab Spring Revolution. He set himself on fire, so I'm not suggesting that anyone else should do that. But my point there is, if it's something you believe strongly enough, then there are actions that you can take.
You can find a way, you're saying.
I think it's defeatist to say, well, I'm just Joe Schmo. I can't do anything about it. Like everybody was just Joe Schmo until they started doing something about it. So I don't know. I'm giving not only motivational speeches to my friend Greenie the Peacock, but motivational speeches to the country now.
I just find it interesting that the pendulum has swung that far in the other direction, to where you used to feel as though the weight of the world, if you will fall on you if you do stand up for something. And now I think what Brandon Marshall is saying, you feel as though the weight of the world is going to fall on you if you don't. Right. And that's an interesting change.
Ole Miss heads to College Station Saturday night to face Texas A&M.
Stiff arm, down he goes! Down he goes!
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.